Chapter 4. Fish keep a fellow out of trouble. The summertime had come, as it comes swiftly in the South, with the trees heavy with summer smells and all the roses blooming in Miss Lottie's garden, and the magnolia all busted up out in those great, heavy, waxen blossoms that turn brown if you touch 'em. The old man was watching us play a game of two-o-cat one day, and when we wound it up, he called me to one side and said he reckoned it was about time for us to go fishing. It was just a question, he said, of what kind of fishing we wanted to do. This is the summertime, the old man said. This is not a time for heavy fishing. In the summertime, you don't belong to work too hard. My idea of summertime fishing is to take a pole and a length of line and sit by a freshwater creek and catch a black bass, or else to get in the rowboat and go find one of those big holes full of speckled trout and use a hand line on them. The whole purpose of summer fishing, the old man said, is not to worry about catching fish, but to just get out of the house and set and think a little. Also, the women folk are very bad-tempered in the summer. The less you hang around the premises, the less trouble you're apt to get in. I said, let's us row out to the channel and find us a trout hole and throw a hand line over and let the day take care of itself. The old man said he thought that was a fine idea, but that even summer fishing took some preparation. He dug in his pocket and found a dime and flipped it at me. You go on down to the shrimp house and buy us a dime's worth, he said, and mind they're fresh and little. Wait for one of the boats to come in and get them while they're still kicking. No, he said on second thought, give me the dime back. We'll go catch our own. You might as well learn how to use a cast net now as any other time. It's almost as much fun as fishing if you do it right. I went to the kitchen to snitch the makings for some lunch and to fill the water jug, and the old man crawled under the house where he kept his tents and some spare boats and a side saddle Miss Lottie used to ride when people still rode horses side saddle. He came out swearing with a crick in his back and the cast net carefully rolled in his hand. The old man had made the tent himself, knotting each line in the net to form a fine, thin web and carefully spacing each leaden sinker that hung from the hem of the net. It was a work of art. As I recall, it took him all winter, although, of course, some of the time he was working on a miniature full-rigged ship, which used up a lot more of his time when he wasn't hunting or playing the fiddle. We walked down to the water, the old man carrying the net slung over his shoulder and a couple of hand lines wrapped neatly around two pieces of wood, notched at each end with the hook bit deep into the wood and the sinker hanging free. I had the lunch box and a water bottle and a fishing tackle box full of extra hooks and sinkers and lead and leaders. The old man was very particular about the extras. He always said that a fisherman who lost his hook might as well not be there at all unless he had another hook, and that a hunter who didn't carry some sort of spare gun was wasting his time in the woods. The boat was hauled up high and dry on the beach with her oars under her. We flipped her over, and I walked barefoot, of course, backward into the water, where we hauled her free and set her to bobbing in the little glimmery summer wavelets. We stowed the stuff under one of the wharfs, and the old man took a push-pole and shoved her over to the corner of the marsh, where you could smell the mud, very salty and foul, but where the little schools of mullet and shrimp were making extra wrinkles in the water. The old man shipped his push-pole and reached for the cast net. He shook it until it hung free like a lead-weighted skirt, then swished it very carefully through the water to make it wet and free-running so as not to snarl. In case you don't know about a cast net, it's a thing like a big circular skirt which fans out at the bottom. It has drawstrings on the bottom that come up through its narrow horn-rimmed necks. It lands flat on the water, and the lead weight carries it swiftly to the bottom. A simple twitch closes the wide bottom and makes it into a net bag with whatever's inside trapped safe and sound. You have to use it in shallow water, of course, because it's not much good at over 4 or 5 feet deep, but throwing it is an art, I found out, and it's a deadly way of collecting your small bait with a minimal of trouble. The old man stood up and flipped out his net like a bullfighter flipping his cape. He put one of the lead sinkers on the bottom in his mouth, holding the drawstring in his left hand. He stretched his right hand to grab another piece of the hem and steadied the whole three-cornered arrangement. Right hand mouth in the middle, with the left hand grabbing the outer left-hand edge of the net's hem. He carried his left hand behind him, taking that part of the net's skirt with him, crossed his right hand past his chest and through. The net swirled out lovely and gracefully, opening to its full diameter like a great round butterfly. It settled at full extension on the water, covering a small school of bucking shrimp. It sank, carrying the shrimp down with it, and the old man's left hand twitched the drawstring. Then he began to haul in the net. The lead-weighted bottom, tucked in now from the stress of the drawstring, made a secure trap for the shrimp. As the water poured out of the net, you could see the tiny little gray-yellow shrimp fighting and kicking inside. The old man dumped the weighted part on the deck of the boat. He released the draw and circled the horn ring with his thumb and forefinger and shook the net gently. Its closed bottomed open. The shrimp, 100 or more, leapt and kicked and quivered on the deck. The old man scooped them up by handfuls and dropped them in a bucket of salt water. "Now you try it," he said. "'Tain't as easy as it looks. You got to make the net swirl out like a lady's dancing skirt when you throw her, and if you ain't careful, that sinker in your mouth will pull out a couple of front teeth. Also, there's a knack to when you haul taut on the drawstring. You've got to give her a chance to settle over the shrimp, but not too long, or they'll get out from under the bottom. Give her a whirl." I spent most of the morning with that net. It hurt my teeth with the sinker. I snarled it and fouled it and twitched it too soon and didn't twitch it fast enough, or forgot to lead the swimming pools of shrimp and little mullet. I was practicing on. Finally, I got to where I could throw her and make her swirl, and eventually I caught a couple of pounds of shrimp and some little 3-inch mullet. A lot later on, I was going to have a mess of fun with that net, fishing the shallows and catching sizable fish that had come in close to feed on the bait. But this morning, I'd just about pulled my arms out of the sockets before the old man said that was enough. Let's have some lunch and then go fishing the ebb tide. We rowed out a mile or so to where the water made an eddy around some rocks, and the old man dropped the anchor overside and let out all the slack in the line. The boat yawed around and hung in a clear place with rapid running water on both sides of her, and we started to unwind the fishing lines, letting them flow downstream to get the kinks dampened out. When we hauled them back in, hand over hand, making a neat wet coil on the deck of the boat, the old man reached into the shrimp pot and chose a lusty kicker and threaded him on the hook, gently circling the shrimp's spine with the barb. He tossed him over the side, and I did the same with mine. We caught fish that day. We caught big sea trout, weak fish that had come in through the inlets, fellows going up as high as 3 and 4 pounds, big, beautiful, speckled saltwater trout with mean chins and anger at the hooks in their mouths. We caught blackfish and croakers with a grunt like an unhappy pig. We even caught some small sharks and an occasional big perch. We caught fish until our hands were chapped and cut and tired from hauling them in. Summertime is an overrated time, I think today, full of sunburn and poison ivy and expensive vacations. But for a boy like me, at that time, summertime was a time of almost unbearable happiness. School was out, of course, and we had a song that went, "No more school, no more books, no more teachers' cross-eyed looks." Summertime was where I went to stay with the old man, and I got loose from my ma and my pa. Summertime was Junebug time and firefly time, each tiny fly blinking his parking light on and off. If you're a very small boy, being close to water makes the summer a marvelous thing. There's something in the kiss of the sun on dancing little waves, fresh salt breeze in your face, and sun on your head, the taste of salt fresh on your lips. It was like that this day when the old man taught me to use the cast net, and all the fish were hungry for the little gray shrimp we had caught at the edge of the steaming marshes. The sun was low when the old man announced that we had had enough and put me to the task of rowing us back to port. My face was fiery from the sun, and there was salt in my pores, and my hands hurt on the hard handles of the oars, but I bent my back with a right good will and listened to the old man, who was talking now more or less to himself. "The thing about fishing," the old man said, "is not how many fish you catch or what kind of fish you catch, or what kind of fish. I, for one, think that making a hard-headed profession out of fishing is a waste of time because a fish is only a fish, and when you make a lot of work out of him, you lose the whole point of him. A fish, which you can't see deep down in the water, is a kind of symbol of peace on earth, goodwill to yourself. Fishing gives a man some time to think. It gives him some time to collect his thoughts and rearrange them kind of neat in an orderly fashion. Once the bait is on the hook and the boat anchored, there's nothing to interfere with thinking except an occasional bite, and even an idiot with reflexes can haul in a fish without interrupting his train of thought. This isn't true, I'd hasten to add, of sport fishing, game fishing, because that calls for a great deal of concentration and some skills and an awful lot of work. I mean that for a rest cure for your head. You got to go fishing like we just been fishing, a holiday from yourself and all the things a man gets mixed up in. Setting out here in the boat, your ma can't get at you and your grandma can't get at you. There ain't any telephone or postal service or radio or automobiles. There ain't anything but just you and the fish, and these kind of fish are all fools. You go to put a shrimp on a hook and throw it out, and if one bites, you haul it in, and if one doesn't, you've still had a mighty fine day in the open where it's quiet and only the seagulls are noisy. Once in a while, the old man said, a fellow wants to get away from everything that's complicated, and fishing is really the only way I know of to do it. Later on, we'll do some serious fishing, which is work, but I don't think you ought to do it in the summertime. One of the reasons people drop dead is from doing serious things in the summertime. Look at us, for example, the old man said. We have had us a fine day away from the women. We haven't bothered each other over with a lot of problems. You learned how to throw a cast net, and this afternoon we caught a mighty pretty mess of fish. So we go home now with all the wrinkles smoothed out of us, hungry, tired, and ready for dinner and bed. The women can't be mad at us because we weren't underfoot all day, and on top of it, here are enough fish to feed the whole block. In a way, we're heroes just because we had sense enough to loaf all day without people watching us. One thing you will learn, the old man said, talking at me, is that you must never be lazy in front of somebody. Loafing is fine, but energetic people get mad at you if you take it easy in front of them. That's one of the troubles with women. They got a dynamo in them and they run on energy. It pure riles a woman to see a man having any fun that doesn't involve work. That's why fishing was invented, really. It takes you away from the view of industrious people. Lazy men make the best fishermen, and they usually amount to something in the end because they have time enough to unclutter their brains and get down to the real flat basics. I do not admire people who are industrious all of the time. They're like people who swat at gnats and miss the mosquitoes. They're always so damn busy running here and yonder on fool's errands that they never have time to settle down and celebrate a little. Lean a little harder on them oars, boy. I'm getting a powerful peckish. We came back to the beach where we hauled up the boat and cached the oars under her and collected the oarlocks and pulled the fish in from the string that let them swim behind us. Then we walked up the hill to the house, tired and sunburnt and rested. When we got there, Miss Lottie was on the front porch, agitating because we were a little late to supper, and there was some sort of telephone call from my ma that I would have to answer if I'd been there. But now it was all settled because I wasn't there to answer it. We had some early supper, not very much because in those days you ate heavy in the middle of the day, and supper was mostly ham and eggs and hominy and biscuits and coffee and maybe a piece of cake. I was yawning before I was through. Then the old man pointed to the backyard. Go clean those fish, son, he said. I'm too old and tired to do it, and you might as well learn that a man who catches fish or shoots game has got to make it fit to eat before he sleeps. Otherwise it'll all a waste and a sin to take it if you can't use it. I near about went to sleep, squatting under the fig tree and cleaning those fish. I never saw so many fish. Seems to me we'd caught all the fish there were, but finally they were all gutted and scaled and trimmed and washed down in salty water and stuck off in the ice box. I was sort of staggering off to bed when the old man hollered at me again. Go wash, he said. I can smell you from here, and you smell like a consarn fish market. Miss Lottie will raise hell if you fish up her nice clean sheets. Then we'll never be able to go fishing anymore. I went and washed and fell dead in the bed. One of the last thoughts I had was that the old man was right when he said that our kind of fishing wasn't work. But he meant that for him. He didn't mean it for me. I never worked harder in my life, but it was worth it next morning at breakfast when old Galena, the cook, brought us those trout.